Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I honestly think this is a giant pile of sugar-coated BS.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss Knocked Up, which released in 2007 from writer-director Judd Apatow. Iain, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows Ben Stone, played by Seth Rogen, and Alison Scott, played by Katherine Heigl. The two of them have met in a club one night and after a few drinks have stumbled back to Alison's place and happen to have a night of passion. But a couple of weeks later, Alison finds herself knocked up and her and Ben have to come together to try to make the relationship work for them and the new baby.
I'm pregnant.
Fuck off.
What?
What?
So, this film's title, Knocked Up.
Yeah.
Do you know it doesn't translate very well into other languages?
Really?
Because knocked up is kind of, well, an American or a British thing. We kind of know
yeah,
it's
it's
getting
British,
pregnant.
yeah.
So in countries like Russia and Italy and Spain, the title is A Little Bit Pregnant. Slightly pregnant. And it's because knocked up's just not a thing.
We should go see Slightly Pregnant. Right? I wonder what it's about.
Yeah. Well, apparently in Portugal, it's called Bloody Bad Luck.
That's a better title.
But it just made me think, I was like, yeah, Knocked Up. It's a funny title, really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think I should just go on record and say I'm not the biggest fan of Judd Apatow's work, really.
Yeah.
And I think this goes back, really, to the Anchorman films. Now, even though Judd Apatow's not... he didn't direct them, but he was part of the making process.
He produces a lot of them.
He produces a lot of stuff, and then there was other films like Step Brothers, and there was just some of these really, I just thought, really bad trash comedies that just felt like no effort. But then eventually I got around to the 40-Year-Old Virgin. I was like, this was also like after Steve Carell had started remaking The Office. It's just like, oh, American doing another thing. I was like, I don't know who this Steve Carell is. But then I started to see more movies with him, and I was like, actually, he's a pretty good actor. And then I ended up going and watching Superbad, and then coming to Knocked Up as well. And I was just like, you know what? My one takeaway from all of this was that I really quite liked Seth Rogen, and I followed his career and almost everything that he's done since. But I also have to say, like, the 2000s era, I have to give credit to Judd Apatow for still, going ahead with, I guess, raunchy R-rated comedy films, and for keeping the adult films, I'm not that kind, but just making films for adults. Well, although it would kind of be catered to like stoner comedies instead. Yeah. But I still think that for a decade nearly, these guys pretty much led the way in terms of cinematic comedies.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree. Like when the films really started to come out, I didn't really find them interesting. Like you said, 40-Year-Old Virgin, I'm looking at Steve Carell on the poster and I'm like, I can kind of just predict how that movie's going to go. He's a 40-year-old virgin and probably will end up having sex at the end of it. It's an hour and a half of him getting laid. Okay, brilliant. Same with Anchorman. Anchorman, pretty cool because like it was the first time I ever got really introduced to Will Ferrell. But like I found it kind of cringy and kind of crude because they're trying to set the films in the 70s where men dominated the office and women were obviously trying to make their way in the office. And so they play on top of that. And so when you're sat there with your girlfriend or your missus at the time, is it really a good thing to be laughing at people being sexist to women and then turn to your missus and going, oh, really sorry, but
I hate you, Ron Burgundy. I hate you.
I've always believed I like comedy. I understand comedy. I've seen all manners of different comedy as I've been growing up, from Tommy Cooper to Monty Python to Roy Chubby Brown. It's just stand-up comedians doing their part. And then, like Gary said, when you look at film comedy, like every decade seems to have a bunch of movies that are made for teens, or I'd say the teenage years from 17 to 21. When you're just on the cusp of being an adult, all of a sudden these comedies come along to go, haha, we're going to show you how funny adulthood is. It's not. It's really serious. But if we make you laugh, you probably won't feel so bad about yourself as you're growing up. So you have your Porkies back in the 80s, then you had your American Pies in the 90s, and then like Gary said, in 2003 to about 2010,
like stoner comedies.
Oh yeah, all of a sudden,
raunchy ones.
Raunchy stoner comedies. You had your Adam Sandler comedies being hit out there. Like you said, you got your Knocked Up and your Role Models and your Funny People and your Pineapple Express and all these comedies produced or directed by Judd Apatow and starring either Seth Rogen or Jason Segel or Jonah Hill or those other guys from that other comedy program that you saw with Steve Carell in and I was just like, you know what? Nah, I'm good. And so 2007 came along. I looked at Knocked Up and I was like, you know what? No thanks. That's not for me. I'm not spending what I thought at the time. I thought it was an hour and a half. I was not going to spend an hour and a half watching some guy knock up a girl and then will they, won't they for an hour and a half. Then it appeared on the list and Gary said, hey, what do you want to review? And I saw Knocked Up and I said to myself, we've never seen it. It's a comedy. You've seen it.
Yeah.
It's a comedy. Iain, sit down and watch it. And then I realised it was 2 fucking hours.
Does like comedy just stop after an hour and a half, Iain? Is it like after that it's just not funny anymore?
No. Comedy, if you're going to make a 2-hour comedy, you've got to make the joke last. Like, and I'll use an example, The Hangover.
Yeah.
Now, The Hangover, particularly the first one, works. The joke is they wake up and they've got a hangover. So the entire movie is then you reliving the night before.
How they got there.
How they got there.
And let's do it 2 more times.
Yeah, because it was a success. Not let's have a 2-hour movie where a girl who obviously has no interest in a guy sleeps with the guy. And then you spend the 2 hours trying to work out if they're going to get together or not for the sake of the baby.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, I mean, because it's a comedy film, you know, for the most part, it's going to have a happy ending.
That's the best.
Well, let's get introducing to our characters, shall we?
Yeah.
We get introduced to the boys, I guess.
Yeah, the boys, I call them.
Yeah, as they're partying at the pool, they're smoking bongs with fish bowls on their heads. They're on roller coasters and at amusement parks, and they haven't got a care in the world.
Living life free, yeah.
We also keep cutting over to Alison during this as well, who's trying to get her morning routine in order.
Yeah.
She's trying to, she's living, with her sister. She's having to babysit when she doesn't want to.
Yeah.
She's trying to, secure this job position that she's got.
Yeah.
So she's trying to be a professional, make a go of things. So we're seeing the complete contrast between the two.
Yeah.
And then she gets, looks like Alison's getting a promotion, and she gets sat down with Alan Tudyk.
Oh,
and
man.
straight away you're just like, applause.
Yeah.
Alan Tudyk,
I
brilliant.
was just like, this movie's got so much better. Woohoo!
Straight away, yeah.
And then he went away for an hour.
But that's it. This film has a lot of, I guess, like celebrity cameos. They come in for one scene, one character part.
Yeah.
But they do, I feel, leave their mark on you. I think each one has a little standout moment.
Yeah.
Makes them memorable.
And
especially this sleazy corporate guy that he's portraying.
But like we said, we've got the guys there. You've got Seth Rogen playing Ben Stone. You've got Jason Segel playing Jason. You've got Jay Baruchel playing Jay. You've got Jonah Hill playing, wait for it, Jonah. And then you've got Martin Starr playing Martin.
Well, that's easy enough to remember.
So they really went out their way to give these characters depth, and background, which I know it's not needed, and I that's really obvious. But then if their background stories are not needed, then in fairness, their characters are really not needed.
Well, interestingly, this was going to be a follow-up to the 40-Year-Old Virgin, where they would all be reprising their roles from the tech team that they were working in before.
Yeah.
But I guess somewhere along the lines, they dropped that, and then everyone just ended up with their own names.
Yeah.
And it just kind of worked anyway.
See, now, that was something I did want to say, was I always felt like the Judd Apatow comedies that he was making, he was trying to make an Apatow universe, like
Sure.
an Askew universe.
Yeah.
But he didn't. And I really feel like he missed the mark, because following on from Knocked Up, you have This Is 40, starring Paul Rudd and Leslie Mann, who have roles in Knocked Up. playing Debbie and Pete, the married couple. And I'm like, man, you should have had the guys from 40-Year-Old Virgin go into this, and then we have their background and story of where they've come from, and then they should go into something else, into another film, and have little cameo roles just dropping up. That would really make sense of why you keep fucking hiring the same people over and over again. But they're there. They're smoking weed and drinking beers and, you know, listening to ODB and having fun. And so, yeah, 2007, they're your atypical boys hanging out. And I said this to Gary before I turned the camera on. Maybe I should have watched this in 2007. So then I could have been like, oh, I wish I had been like that. But I didn't. Because I didn't want to. And I went off and did something else. So now I'm older. I look back at this film, these guys, and I'm like, ha ha ha. That's the fantasy life of guys living together, because the film doesn't go into the reality of it, of how they're paying their rent, or how they're keeping their electricity on, or where the fuck they're getting all this money for weed, and where the hell they're getting all this money for food, and their idea of getting together. Was it their job prospect? They're going to make a web page. Remember, it's 2007. That's what everybody was doing back then, was making web pages. They were making a web page, and they were going to categorize every female actress who's ever been on screen and the films in which you see them nude in. Like a search directory for nudity in film.
Type in Meg Ryan. Bam. In the cut. 38 minutes in. 48 minutes in. Like an hour and 10 minutes. She's like naked that whole fucking movie.
So apparently, because they show clips of Wild Things,
They do, yeah.
They actually got hold of Neve Campbell and Denise Richards and said, "Hey, we're gonna use those nude scenes and put them in our film."
Yeah.
And they both went, "Yeah, great, go for it." So, all right, they got their blessing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like
I love Denise Richards' blessings.
yeah.
Another day at the office.
I do find it funny because they spent 14 months developing this,
Yeah.
and later on in the movie they find out that there's a website called Mr. Skin, which is an actual website which does the thing that they were trying to do.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh, all our time is wasted.
Exactly, you've wasted all this time. How did you even finance any of that?
I just find that funny. I didn't care about the realities of it. It was just the situation was funny.
I totally get that. I totally get that. Like, it does play out. It is funny. But part of me was, when they were talking about this idea, I'm like, I bet you, and like I said, I hadn't seen the film. I bet you that the idea is gonna not come to fruition because somebody's already done it. You know, because that's how I would play that joke out.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the point. Like I said, I know comedy, so in a way, I'm looking at it. I'm like, how would I have that joke play out? You know, having the guys together. One of them, Martin Starr, I think it is bet that he can't shave his beard or cut his hair
for a whole year, and if he does it, he doesn't have to pay rent the entire time.
I think he's paying rent now.
Right? Is anyone?
But Jason Segel's like, if you do it for me, I'll pay your rent for the rest of your life. And he's like, okay. And so they all start making fun of him and calling him different made up names and stuff like that. And I'm like, I bet you he doesn't go through it all the way through now, because he's basically being bullied by his so-called friends about the way that he looks. But no,
he's just going to be the punching bag of these jokes for the entire runtime.
You wouldn't be able to do that for the entire year. You'd end up shaving your frigging face off and going, Ew!
Or killing your housemates.
Yeah, or killing your housemates, yeah. But then on the other side, it's the same with Alison Scott's character. Alison Scott is living in the guest house of Debbie and Pete, and God knows what Pete does for a living, but he's able to not only afford this massive, huge house, but the guest house as well, in which his sister-in-law lives in.
I think he works for like a music company, and he signs bands, sort of like a producer role.
So he makes a shit ton of money, basically. That's the crux of it.
Yeah.
Paul Rudd makes a shit ton of money. His wife stays at home with the two kids, played by Apatow's real-life children, which we thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, but Apatow wanted to develop sort of a realistic or natural look and feel and sound to the film. So He also let his daughters completely improvise. So when the little girl's like, I've been Googling murder.
Yeah.
That's what actually happened in the Apatow family home.
Yeah.
So, like, there's lots of little bits like that. So it does feel more grounded and a little bit more real. And, of course, the actors themselves, they don't know what the kids are going to say next.
No.
So they get real reactions. And a lot of these scenes were also improvised. You know, they had the groundwork of what needed to be said, but then they improvised how they got there. And again, I think it comes... it gives that natural vibe, and because I thought the characters, the actors were pretty humorous, and the way that they fed off each other, I thought it actually worked in terms of being funny and getting the plot moving.
Yeah, I mean, we've got Leslie Mann, who's Judd Apatow's real-life wife, playing Debbie, the mum to the two children. So that really does feel really quite natural, just her being in the scene with her real daughters, with her director husband directing them. You know, you're going up against Paul Rudd, who doesn't seem to have aged.
Yeah.
Still looks the goddamn same as he did when he was in Haddonfield, and the same when he was in the Quantum Realm. I have no idea how the guy does it. But he's way too nice. And I have always found Leslie Mann to just be so aggravating as an actress. I think the first time I ever saw her was in Orange County, the Jack Black movie.
Yeah.
And she did my head in that. And so I just really wanted to avoid her every time I came to a film. And yet, here comes the Judd Apatow comedies, and she's in practically all of them. I was just like, no thanks. I'm good.
So I'm the bad guy because I'm trying to protect our kids from child molesters and Mercury. And you're cool because you don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's the Hollywood fantasy as well that they're a happy married couple. And so Alison kind of wants that. She wants the husband, and she wants the big house, and she wants the, you know, the good job and all that kind of stuff. But Paul Rudd's character, like, there's this whole story subplot that goes along with the family that both Gary and I agreed they could have just cut completely out of the film and saved it 30 minutes.
Agreed, yeah.
Because it's trying to, you know, make you feel like, oh, when you're married, yeah, and you've got kids, your life is over. Well, no, it's not. It is if you still want to do things in your life but don't want to take responsibility for the two children that you've had. But if you're responsible for them, you don't have to worry about doing anything else, because you can just sit back and chill. When those kids go to school, mum does what?
I don't know.
Exactly. But she complains her husband works too much. Okay, but what are you doing that you haven't got any hobbies? You literally just sit there waiting for the kids to come in through the
door. How much longer do you want this film to be?
Oh, Jesus, yeah. But it's like there's that joke bit where he turns to her in the bathroom and he just goes, do you want to have sex tonight? And she goes, not really. I'm feeling kind of constipated.
I'm just really constipated. Do you really want to?
Well, now.
Shut up.
Like, I don't have conversations like that. You kind of build up for it, you know. You kind of, you know, you still have to put time aside. Like Wednesday, 7, maybe. I don't know. It might be a bit busy, but it's the Hollywood fantasy idea of once you're married, that's it. Your life's over. Then Alison goes to work, and she, like I said, has a sit down with Alan Tudyk, and she's given this promotion, and so she's like, I want to celebrate. So Mum goes, hey, we're going out to the club tonight. I'm like, all right, calm down, Mum. What have you been sat in the house bored all day? That now something good's come along. You're like, I'm going out to get pissed. I'm going to leave my husband at home with the 2 kids because obviously he's been at work all day. So that bit with the begin at the club line,
yeah,
you know, where the 2 of them just kind of walk up into the club because the bouncers are like, oh yeah, they're 2 hot
pretty ladies, in you go,
in you go, and you
normies back of the line.
Yeah, you can see the boys standing at the line going, oh, you let us in, and I was like, yeah, you know what? Actually, that's really relatable.
Yeah, I've seen that happen.
Yeah, I've seen that happen before. Yeah. But then Ben's at the bar. He's trying to get a drink, and Alison comes down, and the 2 of them are there, and he literally just reaches over behind the bar because he can't be bothered to wait for the barman. Reaches behind, grabs the 2 beers, drops the money on the bar, and goes, "Here you go," and gives the beers to Alison, who takes them back to her sister. And I'm like, all right, okay, I suppose that's how they first meet. You know, I wouldn't try that in real life because the bouncer will probably break your arm, throw you out, and keep your money, and the girl still got the beer. But like I said, Hollywood fantasy. You know, Ben is kind of immune to all that kind of at this point. And then he makes his move to go up and have the conversation with her. And Seth Rogen trying to play the awkward kind of geeky guy.
I think he plays it very well.
Yeah, I think he plays it really well as well.
It's the awkwardness of it all.
You know, I'm all dressed, so I'll just hang out.
Really?
Yeah, I'll take a cab home.
Okay.
And Alison's just like, you know what, I guess I'll stay out. I'm going to stay out tonight. It's like, I'm kind of glad it cut to a montage because it didn't want, the awkward conversation that they're still just here.
Yeah, the montage
Casey was just like, I'll leave you two alone.
We're just doing shots now.
Yeah.
And I'm less like, right, so for me, it's the fantasy element of it, that you meet a really pretty girl who now just wants to do shots with you and get drunk.
And take you home afterwards.
Yeah, it's bound to lead it. Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often.
Let's go back to my place to watch an audition video. They're already making out before they've gotten inside the place. They're getting ready to have sex. And she says, "Oh, have you got protection?" And he's like, "Yeah." So, it's kind of cool for that it was smart. Need protection. I actually have protection. And then while he's trying to get it on, she says something like, "Just get on with it," or something. And he's like, "Okay." And so he throws the condom on the floor and they go and have sex. And I was like, ooh. In reality, that would be a very, very awkward conversation the very next morning. You could get into an awful lot of trouble with the police,
Well, the film hits us with that dose of hangover sunshine, doesn't it? Yeah. With his ass gleaming in the air as she walks in absolute disgust with herself and with the monster that's laying in her bed.
Yeah, which, once again, it's just Hollywood predictability script writing.
Yeah,
it's like,
but it's kind of funny. They do the walk of shame as they're leaving, and the little girl's just like, "Who's that?"
Yeah, right. She's already up and dressed and made a coffee, ready to go to work. How long the fuck has she been awake for that she hasn't decided to wake him up?
I don't know.
Right, exactly. And it just seems so farcical where she's just stood there with the coffee and
she's probably been holding it off as long as possible because she's dreading facing the reality.
Face it. You had sex with him. At least you can remember, because they even go and have breakfast. I mean, I thought the breakfast sequence was pretty cool where it goes back again.
It was brutal.
Yeah, it does. But it goes back again to the awkwardness again of, how they're complete opposites for each other. And Seth Rogen is talking about like the website that they're trying to do. And she's obviously thinking to herself, Jesus Christ, he's got no prospects. He's got no money. Why did I do this to myself? What am I going to do? And she ends up leaving. And he's just like, "Shall I take your number and stuff?" She's like, "Oh, okay, yeah."
He doesn't even have a phone.
And so you're just like, well, right, okay. We the audience, we know how this is going to go, because in a couple of weeks, she's going to start feeling the pregnancy kick in. But for them, their relationship is over at this point. And then she's there talking to James Franco. It's a couple of weeks later, and the morning sickness kicks in and she ends up vomiting.
And then we get the conversations with Debbie, and then they're racing around the supermarkets. We get the montage of them buying all of the pregnancy tests, and then we get the montage of them doing all the tests, and then Debbie freaks out. She's like, "Oh God, I'm pregnant!" So, "Oh no, that was your one." Okay, no. And I love Alison's reaction, like, "Come on, like I've just got like 30 positives, and you." So I thought that was quite funny.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. It's funny.
It's also watching Paul Rudd like peer around the corner as they're all doing these pregnancy tests, and he's like, "Yeah, I think I'll leave this one."
Well, this thing is like the thing with the Debbie character where she's just like, she's so scared to have another baby. Why? Your life seems great. You don't work. You don't seem to do anything during the day while your kids are at school. Your husband makes all the money. Your sister lives on the same fucking plot of land with you. Everything is great. Why would you worry about, "Oh my God, I'm pregnant. My life is completely over again." But they're then obviously coming to terms with the idea that she's going to have to tell Ben. They're going to have to obviously discuss of what they want to do with the baby. And you get that sequence where she calls him up. Well, she sends the message, doesn't she, through the website first. And they see the message. So he gives her a number. She calls him. And while he's talking to her, making a date or an appointment to get together to talk, all the guys are so excited that he's going to get laid again that they're all just making these sexual noises and positions and stuff. And I was just like, that's not cool. It's funny.
It's not, but it happens.
Yeah,
just like that.
It does. It does. But it's just the same thing. It's feeding into that energy of Ben is not the right guy for her.
Yeah.
Where I'm not even halfway through the movie yet, and I already know he is, because there was just nothing hinted throughout the whole movie that Alison was going to go off with any other guy.
There was no other love interest.
No,
so,
that's what I mean. Most films usually have, when the guy is the complete opposite to the main girl or whatever, there's another guy on the horizon that she kind of wanted to get with, but she's going to realize halfway through the movie that guy's a dick. So she's going to go back to the guy that she didn't actually think she was going to ever find anything good with. There's none of that in this movie. So she's bound to end up with Ben by the end. It's just, I suppose,
it's the
Ben
falling.
Had to get to,
well, that's it. I mean,
that's
what the crux of the next half hour of this film is. It is the moment where they do actually fall for each other, because they, obviously she explains to him, obviously I'm pregnant, and he blows up almost like Hal, blames her for forcing him to take the condom off. And
Seth Rogen can fucking swear, I'll tell you.
Oh yeah, I think this film drops the F-bomb like 120 times. And interestingly, Seth Rogen, he said, like, throughout growing up, he was, his parents wouldn't let him swear at all, but now he swears like a trooper.
Yeah,
I thought it was great. I thought the actors did it really well.
Yeah.
And that's what I liked as well, is that the film kind of sheds away some of that comedy and hits you with the drama. It's got a little bit of grit to it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is kind of, I feel like this is based in reality or based in stories or events that have actually happened. And we've found out through Judd Apatow's commentary that a lot of the stuff that happened to him and Leslie Mann in their courting and relationships, they've just put straight into this movie because, well, borrow from reality and exaggerate it a little bit, but it works. And so because they are so polar opposites, she comes round to his house in disgust of like the people that he's living with.
Yeah.
She's in disgust at the website.
Yeah.
But later on, she sat there and she's making notes.
She's watching.
She's like, oh, boobs and bush.
Yeah.
They're watching Carrie.
Yeah.
And so it's little moments like that where they do start to bond, and there's that sweet moment where they've been out, they've been doing shopping, and they've been visiting different gynecologists and doctors where they just hold hands as they're walking down the road. It's like, okay, it's actually, it's like, this is quite sweet, because even though the two of them are polar opposites, they share to the audience their flaws. So we see things that we don't like about both of them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the film shows us enough to actually like both of them. So we kind of root for them to get together. So even though it is that type of film, watching it play out over these scenes, I kind of dug it.
It kind of works, but personally, I still think I prefer Look Who's Talking. I'm not saying that this movie needed a talking baby in it. What I'm saying is that movie felt more grounded in reality of them trying to get the relationship together, even though John Travolta wasn't the one that Kirstie Alley wanted to get with, but he ended up being the man that was stepping up. In this, she keeps hammering home that he needs to grow up and become responsible, and he just keeps putting it off for such a long time. I'm just like, God, movie, I get it. I know he needs to fucking grow up, but the movie is not letting him grow up, because they've just got to keep padding it out for that extra 30 minutes because they've got a 2-hour runtime. There's a sequence where he sits with Harold Ramis. Harold Ramis is playing Seth Rogen's kind of on-screen dad, and they're talking about it, and it is such a heart-sweet moment where Harold Ramis is like, look, you're the greatest thing I ever did with my life. And I feel the exact same thing with my son. I'm like, everything I've ever done means nothing unless you are there to see me do it. And then you can say when you grow up, oh, my dad, my God, he tried it. Then when you get the Alison and her mum sequence, and the mum's just like, you should get an abortion. And I'm like, damn, mum, you're not even going to try. No, don't give up your life. Yeah, but my sister's already had 2 kids. Yeah, well, she's a freak of nature. I'm like, oh, Jesus. Whoa.
Damn, that's cold.
Yeah, cold, Mom.
Yeah. But I guess the film just wanted to put that perspective in there as well, and then also as a counterpoint to Alison, who is, you know, a nice person really compared to her mother.
And I used there's a sequence that I saw that I was just like, that's just so fucking stupid, and it almost made me switch the movie off. But I was just like, no, I'll give it a chance. It's the moment where she's sleeping over at their house.
The earthquake.
Yeah, and there's an earthquake, right? And they've tried to have sex a few times and stuff like that, and it's not working.
I appreciate this movie kind of brought that up.
Bruh.
Because of the uncomfortability of having sex with a pregnant person and the fear of bobbing the baby's head. It's just comedy gold. And
it is.
And coming from these two.
I've been there. Okay, I have been in that reality. After about 6 or 7 months, you're kind of ready to do anything really, and when your partner is there with the baby and the body, and they're just like, look, let's do it, and you're like, should we? like you want to, but then you're like,
It's all I see is our baby getting poked in the face by my penis.
Trust me, you're not even close.
Okay,
Come on, fine.
And so the movie, like you said, the movie's like, oh, you try this position, try that position. Am I going to jam the baby in the head with my dick or something? Shall we try it, doggy? And you're just like, just don't.
You are not screwing me like a dog.
Yeah, just don't.
No, doggy style.
Just don't, okay? That's what got you into this position in the first place. Let's not make it any worse.
Well, you've lost the mood now anyway.
Well, that's it.
So that's why it was a great sequence.
She's like, oh, well, I just need to relax. And he's like, yeah, so do I. So Ben, Seth Rogen, gets up from the bed and goes into the front room and decides he's going to start smoking weed. Now, you have your pregnant girlfriend in the other room. If you don't have a fucking plan of how much weed you're going to smoke or how long you're going to do it for, you are really irresponsible, because you need to be on when you have a pregnant partner, especially after 4 or 5 months, anything go on. If you're high and I'm not saying that it would happen in a Hollywood fantastical comedy, but if something serious happened, you need to be on your fucking game. An earthquake happens, she starts freaking out, everybody starts rushing out of the house, and Seth Rogen, because he smoked so much he forgot that she was in the bedroom, runs outside with his bong.
Yeah, well, I mean, the film has to go through that formula though, where they realize that they're not compatible with each other and they have to separate.
Yes, I know. I said that at the beginning of the review.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've seen 1,000 of these types of films.
Yeah.
But what I like is that it's these personalities and these characters going through those motions. I think they do it well. So even though we know what's coming, watching them go through it, I'm still invested.
Yeah, I suppose for female members of the audience, they can turn to it and go, oh, look, to their partner. They can say, oh, look, that's what you're like when you're smoking weed. You're an asshole. And, and the males of the audience could go, wow, when you were pregnant, you were a bit of a hormonal bitch like that. Oh, aren't we so together compatible like Debbie and
We
Pete?
can laugh about it now.
And I'm sat there going, this is such bullshit. It's such bullshit. Because it's like he comes outside and he's got the bong in his hand. And he's just like, oh, look, it's the cops. And he throws the bong and it smashes on the glass. I'm like, your missus is there and your buddy's practically naked, barefoot. But it's Hollywood. We don't worry about glass on the floor or anything. But Alison breaks up with Ben. And this is after he'd already tried to get down on his knees with her.
Yeah.
He tried to propose to her with an empty box. And that was really quite
But it was
sweet.
filled with a nice promise. It was really quite. I know a lot of audiences finally forgave Seth Rogen's character, Ben Stone, at this point, because it was so genuine and so heartfelt, and you realised he does have a heart of gold and he really does want to try. He just doesn't know how, and so it's the best he can come up with. So it's a very sweet moment.
That's why he in reality, what he would have done is he would have separated himself from his group of friends and put Alison at the forefront of all of his decision making, because that's basically what he needed. He needed guidance, and he tries it along with all of his mates to give him advice. He asks his dad for advice, he's asking Alison for advice, and nobody he is giving...
He's even asking Pete for advice, too.
Yeah, he's even asking Paul Rudd, you know, and Paul Rudd's just like, I don't fucking know, look at me, my life's fucking shit. I'm like, fuck you, Paul Rudd. You got shit tons of money, a beautiful wife, 2 kids, a job, and freedom, and you're unhappy? You're unhappy?
Marriage is like an unfunny, tense version of Everybody Loves Raymond. But it doesn't last 22 minutes. It lasts forever.
But it keeps playing out, you know, Ben and Alison separate, and Alison is getting more and more pregnant, and she's been hiding it from her job for like 6 months. Like bullshit, but you know, like the film plays into the idea.
Bullshit on that. You know? But yeah, she thinks she's in trouble though because she finally gets called into the office. Yeah, it doesn't look good. You know, Christian Wiig is sat there like, "Oh, you're getting fired now." But Alan Tudyk's like, "No, we love it. We want you to get bigger. We're gonna bring in pregnant celebrities for you to interview, and this and that." But then after the baby, tight, back in the gym, tight. Just like, oh, it's so sleazy and horrible. Again, the three of them just make those scenes work really well.
Yeah. And Ben has tried to come over to speak to Alison because he wants to try to make it work. But when they first broke up, he and Pete, Paul Rudd's character, had this amazing idea of just going to Vegas.
Taking some mushrooms.
Yeah. Like, Pete's character is that rich, he can just get in this flashy sports car and go to Vegas.
And book a luxurious hotel, massive show,
Cirque du Soleil,
lap dancers.
He can, that blew my mind as well when they're there with the lap dancers and he's getting his butt rubbed in this, he's getting his face rubbed in this girl's ass. And I'm like...
No, that's how you get pink eye.
The pink eye joke was so fucking stupid.
Yeah, I know there are some seriously like bad juvenile humor in here, but then I do think there's some jokes that are quite clever and quite witty, and I guess some of it improvised as well. It balances out.
I suppose if you're 16 years old, you'd probably find this film hilarious and be, using it as a warning sign. But by the time this movie came out, I was 25. I'd had life beat me down into a small ball, and tell me how to get up and take some more. So I was looking at Seth Rogen like...
Yeah.
But yeah, they do go and they hit these mushrooms and Seth Rogen...
They talk about chairs for like 20 minutes. This one's got a better vibe. I like this one.
I heard Paul Rudd talking about chairs. It was great. And the two girls, Debbie and Alison, they've decided to go to the club again. But obviously Alison is like 7-8 months pregnant. And you've got Craig Robinson playing the doorman.
He's great. They're going to have him here for a reason. And the fact that she has a full meltdown attacking him for not letting her in. But then he pulls her aside and it's just like, look.
I would tear that ass up. I can't let you in because you're old as fuck. For this club, not, for the earth.
But yeah, so they end up coming back from Vegas. There's I guess Paul Rudd kind of gets back with Debbie, like their relationship's fine.
Yeah.
But for Ben, like things not the relationship didn't come back together.
No.
But then we do see him like turning things around. He ends up on the phone with his dad. He's just like, Dad, I tried to do what you said and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And Dad's just like, well, look, I divorced 3 times, so I'm sorry, my advice. But the main thing he says is you got to take responsibility. And he's like, well, how do I do that? And he's like, well, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then he does. He tries to, it's movie magic.
He
gets a job. He gets a new apartment.
Yeah.
He gets new clothes.
Yeah.
And he turns his life around. He starts reading those baby books. His friend's like, we're going to go get wasted and go to a party. And he's just like, no, it's 8:30. I'm going to keep reading and I'm going to sleep.
In like a month, he managed to turn his whole life around.
We don't see it. The film keeps jumping.
Yeah, they're just montages. And I honestly, once again, it was the Hollywood fantastical idea of, right, we need it to end happy. So what does he need to do? Well, he needs to get a job. Well, amazing. He got a job where, designing websites. Wow. I didn't even see him go for an interview. He just managed to get the job. And not only that, but the paychecks have come through so quickly that he's able to buy an apartment, a large apartment for him and his missus, because he's hoping to obviously get the baby over. And then, like you said, he's turning to his friends and going, no, I can't do these things hanging out. And his friends are like, yeah, okay then. Bullshit. His friends would be like, you're dropping us like flies. What? That's not fair. But they were like, no. It's all okay. But Alison, she's at home, and there had been this whole thing where her and Ben had been going around looking for a doctor, an actual doctor to take care of her, and they went through like 3 or 4 different doctors that they didn't like, and she'd settled on one, and he said he was going to be there. He doesn't go to the Caribbean. He was going to be there for the birth, and lo and behold, he's at a bar mitzvah in San Francisco, which immediately just upsets the whole apple cart. You know, Alison realizes that she's on her own. Her sister and Pete have gone to Legoland. She's alone. So guess who's the only person that she can trust and call to come round and take care of her to the hospital?
Ben?
Yeah.
Oh.
Surprise.
Well, we, as an audience, we need this to happen. And we need them to get back together. And we kind of need him to be needed so that he can kind of make things right.
Yeah.
And he does do everything possible. He's like, I don't even have gas to get to yours. Like when he does go through the back entrance, we can hear dogs barking in the background. So we know he broke down somewhere and had to run through some gardens to get there.
Yeah.
You know, it's implied with a sound effect, but it works. And he gets there and she's just like in the bath, just like chill.
Yeah.
I'm just chill now. But still get hold of that doctor. And apparently all of this, again, actually happened to, the Apatows in real life, where he ended up leaving a very nice message to the doctor.
I hope you fucking die or drop the fucking chair and kill that fucking kid. Hope your plane crashes. Peace, fucker.
Yeah, but he does eventually drive her to the hospital. And
where the hell did they get that second car from?
I guess her car.
That's her car, I'm assuming. Yeah.
And but then complications continue there when the doctor comes in and things aren't going right, and he's having to move the baby around. But the doctor's also not adhering to some of her wishes, so Ben has to take the doctor outside to give him a bit of a talking to, which again come from the real story. Then the birthing miracle starts to happen. But of course, everybody's outside in the waiting room getting excited. It's
now this point in the movie, I was very much behind, and I thought it was very well done, simply because they didn't shy away from the birth.
Well,
they
put a trivia for you.
Right, okay.
I mean,
that's not Leslie Mann's vagina, is it?
Well, it's your head covering it now, so I'll never know. I mean, it's only there for a few seconds, but yeah, the original intent was to film a real birth to put in the movie.
Yeah,
they're like, well, we're not going to shy away from this. We're going to,
go for
put it in there. But this was really daft. I mean, they even got the woman who signed the consent. She was like, yeah, I'll do it. You can film. We'll go in the movie. But then the
carpets didn't match the drapes.
I guess the corporation, I don't know, who's just like, you're it's illegal to do this.
Yeah, it is.
Because the baby doesn't have a work permit.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, of course it doesn't. It's being birthed. So it's like, well, therefore, you can never shoot a real birth for an American movie.
No.
So it's like, okay. So they had to build a prosthetic and fake it all. And well, it's only on screen for like, I'm not. You don't want to freeze frame it. Like, we can't even show it anyway.
I don't need to see it, man. I've seen it in real life. I know what the shit looks like from down there. And I had pretty much the same reaction as Jay does when he's like, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna see if they need some help.
Yeah.
And you have a look, and then he comes out and he's like, don't ever go in there. Don't ever. You know, childbirth is one of the most beautiful, natural, kind of horrific kind of moments you can go through your life. But as a parent going through it, you know, you see it and you're like, oh my God, like no film or practical special effect will ever come to close to being in a delivery room and seeing everything for yourself. It's one of the greatest moments. And so I was very happy that the movie not only didn't shy away from it, but actually pushed it a couple little ways by making you see it, making you see the head crown. The baby came out. I mean, I get so sick and tired of babies coming out when they're being born and being clean, you know. This one was covered in a little bit of gunk, you know. Katherine Heigl really looked like she'd gone through some real effort to give birth. Like at one point when I was looking at the prosthetic effect of her belly, I was just like, did they really just get her pregnant at one point?
No, really good prosthetics there.
Yeah, it was really good, especially when she was in the bath. You know, it was covered, but I was just like, yeah, that generally looks like a real woman's pregnant belly. And so then, you know, she gives birth. Everybody's so happy. Debbie's happy. Pete's happy. The guys are all happy. You know, she's sleeping. Seth Rogen's having the conversation with his daughter about how they got together and how mommy told me to get on with it, so I did. And so in a way you can blame mummy for where we are, but luckily, and it just knocks down those last few dominoes before the end credits come, which after the hospital I kind of was just like back in a mood again, because it just ended all happy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they're driving off into the sunset basically in their car really slowly, and they're going to be happy for the rest of their lives, and nothing's going to come between them. And you know, even Debbie and Pete, they're like, "Oh, we'll have another baby." Oh, so after everything you've been moaning about throughout this goddamn movie, and then it ended.
Yeah, well, it ended the only way I knew it could, was with a happy ending, driving off to their new place with a montage over the credits. It's like, yeah, it's fine.
I mean, a shootout in the hospital wouldn't have gone too badly. Him holding the baby did
it a little bit more exciting, I give you. Yeah.
Hard boiled was great, jumping out the window with the baby in arm, you know.
What were your favourite scenes from Knocked Up?
I suppose I had a few. The restaurant conversation over breakfast, showing how incompatible Ben and Alison were, it really worked. I mean, the script writing was really on point, and I mean, I suppose that's why Seth Rogen and Katherine Heigl aren't married, is because they're completely fucking opposites to each other. But it did just, you know, elevate Seth Rogen's character of, he is awkward, he is doing something that he shouldn't be doing with all of this website sex business, and he's a legal immigrant and he's not paying any tax, and she's looking at him like, "Oh my god, I had sex with you," and I'm like, "Hey, I know that look. I've seen that look a few times." Oh, yeah, I shouldn't admit that. The sex mockery when Alison rings him up and the guys are just all doing it around, you know, and there's just all these different positions, and he's ramming Jason Segel's head again. Stupid stuff. This is what happens when the guys hang out, and I suppose I kind of laughed looking at it thinking, oh God, I remembered those days. But then it did make me feel kind of bad that, you know, I remembered those days. Where have those days gone? Well, we don't do it anymore because we do feel it's immature and we need to grow up and all that kind of stuff. Harold Ramis appearing on screen. Their conversation about him being the dad and him being the son and what they did with their lives and being responsible, and it just, I'd love to have that conversation with my son in the future. He'll probably tell me to shut.
What, that you were divorced 3 times?
Well, you'll just keep remarrying Linda, just keep going back and forth, get a cheaper wedding each time. No, it's just, you know, that conversation of like, I don't want you to be like me when you grow up, but I do kind of expect you to, you know, listen to some of the good things that I've said and done and do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like what he said. He said, well, I asked you if you ever did drugs. Well, I didn't. Only at the weekends and, you know, when you went to bed. I was just like,
but not all the time.
Oh, yeah. Totally get that.
And then I found out you were smoking pot that whole time. Not the whole time, just in the evenings and all day every weekend. Not that much.
The pink eye scene leading to the Las Vegas scene. The pink eye scene was stupid. Don't ever give each other pink eye. It's gross. But then seeing the guys in Vegas doing mushrooms and going to the titty twister and whatnot, that was funny, because then when you flip it and you have the Debbie and Alison characters wanting to get into the club, and Craig Robinson is having to pull them off and go, look, you're old as fuck and she shouldn't even be out here because she's pregnant. I can't let you in. Against every fibre of my body, I should never let you into the club. And the birth sequence. I mean, look at my head again. Ain't that amazing? If you ever get the chance to see that in real life, enjoy it. Because, man, like I said, no special effect on God's green earth will ever make you look at things again in the same light.
So I'm just going to change scene completely now. I'm going to go. My first favorite scene was Brent. I love Bill Hader. The fact that he had a small role in this.
Yeah.
And it was the first moment in the film, about 25 minutes in, where I belly laughed at his dying Jabba the Hutt impression of her vomiting.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's great. I just find him naturally funny. So yeah, all the moments with him in, great.
It make me throw up.
You look like Jabba the Hutt dying.
such an asshole.
It's the reaction from Ben when she says that she's pregnant, and he just says "fuck off." It's just the brutal, honest reaction. I was just like, yeah, that came out perfectly. That was great.
I'm pregnant.
Fuck off.
What?
What?
I love the moment where he's out in the garden and he's playing fetch with the kid. And Debbie's just like, he's playing fetch with my kids.
Yeah.
He's feeding grass to the teddy bear, and he's like, well, I'm sure the teddy bear will be smoking it.
I'm listening to him. I'm like, there's some things you don't say around kids. But in this movie...
Hey, these kids are already Googling murder, so,
Because their parents are Judd Apatow, and he doesn't give a fuck. He's too busy writing fucking comedies.
Paul Rudd doing a Robert De Niro impression was absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. His face completely transformed.
These shoes? Hey, on these shoes?
I think one of the rawest cutting moments in the film is after they're back from Vegas, after Pete and Debbie have got back together, and Ben's there to make things up, and he's got the doll, which gives a present.
Yeah.
But he goes and talks to Allison, and he comes back, and he's like, you could have warned me, man. It was like walking into a buzzsaw.
Yeah.
It's because of you because you're a shitty husband, that she thinks, I'm going to be a shitty husband.
Yeah.
And walks out. And Pete's just there with the cake, with the candles burning and everything, and he's just like, happy birthday. As he walks out, it's like, oh, like he's literally just been smacked down hard, cold, and then he's immediately got to put it back on for his family, like back in that moment again. I was like, yeah, that was perfectly timed. Well done.
But that was the thing. Like, one, I kind of wish Paul Rudd was a bad guy now, because I need to see him as a bad guy. It just doesn't work out if he's always good. And two, Seth Rogen is giving him shit going, you're a shitty husband. I'm like, where? When? What has he done that's shitty? He's not cheating.
He's
not
lied.
Oh my God.
That's worse than cheating, according to Debbie.
Yeah, according to Debbie. Fucking.
Because you're such a shitty husband, she thinks I'm going to turn into a shitty husband.
Happy birthday.
But yeah, there's many little moments like that you'll get a little wry laugh from, a little some of the juvenile humor, some of the vulgar humor, and some of the smart humor.
Yeah,
I think it all works out pretty well. But Iain, would you recommend Knocked Up?
I can't not personally recommend this movie because I like I said, I either missed out watching it when I was younger. Or I just didn't find it as funny as other people have found it funny. But as we've always said, we've said it maybe 100 times whenever we've done comedies on this show. It's like what's funny to someone could not be funny to somebody else. And so you really do need to check it out for yourself to see if you find it funny. So I definitely recommend it, as I would probably recommend all of Judd Apatow's comedies, because that's all he ever does is comedies, and they're usually really, really quite funny to individuals. But there's just some things in this film that just don't work. Like I said, the Hollywood fantasy of everything working out in the end. The idea that Paul Rudd can be a shitty husband by doing nothing. That 5 guys can live in a house and not ever have to pay rent or electricity and anything like that, and everything still works out. That it doesn't. I suppose if I was 15, 16, and I didn't know any better, and I sat down and I watched this, I'd be like, oh God, that's so funny. I can exactly predict how my life is going to turn out when I have kids. No, you can't. This film kind of takes like one man's experiences and then just tries to imply that it kind of happens to everybody. It doesn't. It only happens in Hollywood or in a movie, or one guy's life. Some of the jokes work. And as Gary and I said before we turned the camera on, if we removed the Debbie situation and the husband situation, if you removed all of that, you could lose 30 minutes of this movie and still keep the focus mainly on Ben and Allison, because that's the core. They're they're supposed to run that tightrope, or will they, won't they, will they, won't they? But the film is so predictable that there is nothing else going on in Alison's life that she is going to get with Ben at the end. Are they going to stay together for the rest of their life? Nobody cares. You know, even I don't even think they're brought up in This Is 40, which is technically the sequel to this. They should have been, you know, to see how this goes. Like I said, Judd Apatow should have made this all in one big universe. Is this his biggest comedy? I don't know. Will it be the one that he's always remembered for? I don't know. Does he just keep knocking out more and more and more so that he can just say, look, I've got this backlog of comedies, and so it will be lost in the mixture of it? I don't know. And personally, I don't care. So if you want to watch the movie and have fun, then go knock yourself out and have fun. Don't fart on your buddy's pillow. And always remember to keep 2 condoms in your pocket just in case the girl decides to take you home. Peace.
All right. Well, I've never been the biggest Judd Apatow fan. However, I think he struck gold with this one, and throughout the 2000s with some genre-defining stoner comedies that were crude, funny, and smart, and that was often realistic and raw, and also very exaggerated, whilst being highly entertaining. Seth Rogen, I feel, is a huge part of that. A natural on-screen and equally talented off-screen. He's very likeable and relatable, flaws and all. You know, Katherine Heigl, I thought, was great here as well. She showed a good range and some great comical timing, and she grounded the drama pretty well. There are many great situational set-piece comedy moments with an incredibly well-cast ensemble of comedy actors creating some very memorable scenes, from Craig Robinson as the doorman and Adam Scott's nurse. You know, the comedy, it worked for me. I loved the naturalistic line delivery, the improvisation, the characters, and the pace. You know, some of the jokes didn't work. You know, it's a feel-good story with some grit and some bush and boob jokes. So, yeah, I actually do recommend Knocked Up. I think it's worth a watch. There's some good performances and some good, smart, and vulgar humour with a very, very likeable cast. Save the due date! Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.